general thoughts on the weekend?
I really liked how we played this weekend. I think you got to get a chance to see like what we are going to look like. That our offense was potent, that our defense was solid, and I thought our pitching was good as well.
With that many more starts, reps, innings, starting to get a better gauge now in year two with Stevie in terms of where that when she's on and when success is going to happen, and if there is any kind of an issue, how to identify it just earlier, and kind of stomp it out quicker if there's a command or any kind of a control issue or anything like that.
Yeah, I think the first weekend she put a little pressure on herself. That's what I think about with the first weekend more than anything, is her just putting a little too much pressure on herself, which happens. So it was nice to see Stevie. I thought she looked really sharp. She threw the ball hard, had really good movement, was constantly working ahead.
How important with that? Like, how important is a weekend like this, not just in general, but like for her when you're trying to gauge, of course, like to project out and think out for the rest of the season and plan out weekend rotations and things like that. That a lineup and a 5-game series like this weekend with a Florida team that's loaded offensively in particular. Like, how important is this weekend to getting a barometer for all those kind of things you're trying to aspire for this season?
Yeah, I think this is a big weekend for us. We've talked about coming out of the gates and being able to come out quick and having a postseason mentality right now versus allowing the season to develop and then eventually get there. And so I think that's what you got to see this weekend. I think it puts us in a really good position going into Palm Springs. We're going to face tough teams from, every single game we play. So it's just having the ability to really stay focused on us as a team and not let things get too big, not try to do too much, just trust that what we have is good enough and go out and compete.
This weekend, you guys responded almost every time that, something happened in the bottom of an inning, you guys would come back in the top or whatever the next go-round was offensively. Would you attribute that to just the postseason mentality, or is that just kind of that this team has a higher floor than others and they're just able to do that and not feel the pressure and respond quickly?
I think what's kind of cool is this team is an older group and they're just older and they're more experienced and I think have the ability. I think the in-game adjustment is the most important thing that you can do. Do you have the ability in the middle of the game, in the heat of the moment, to make an adjustment in that area? And I think that's what you got to see from this team this past weekend, is just the quick adjustments.
When going up against some of these teams that made it to the World Series last year, do you look at that game against Oklahoma State in terms of what things you maybe wish you could have done better in that game to sort of translate to these teams that were also at the top of the softball landscape last year?
I think what's great is just coming out of, going into our first weekend and playing a team like Oklahoma State and just playing some of the tough teams that we've already played. It prepares you a little bit more for what you're going to face at Mary Nutter. Mary Nutter, every single game, you're going to play a team that's ranked, a team that went to postseason, a team that was at the World Series. And so I think it just really puts us in a better position to compete against them and to understand what we need to do to win. I think for us to do what we need to do, it's about being able to pitch and have really good defense, to be clutch with our hitting. We're going to face some tough pitchers. You're not going to get 10 plus hits off of them. If we do, I'll gladly take that. But it's being able to clutch up in the moment and put a couple things together. And from there, what can your defense and pitching staff do to finish out the game?
Did you want to play Northwestern Missouri another go-around after last season? Like, as a data point, was that deliberate on your part, or was that just happenstance that Mary Nutter just paired you up again?
We're glad to play them. I think, getting to play them last year and not getting what we wanted, to get another opportunity at them, I think this team is looking forward to it.
You mentioned that some of the pitchers, if you do face Hightower in particular, what do you see from her? What makes her unique in the long lineage of very good Florida pitchers?
I just think she does a really good job of moving the ball around. She's got good separation between her different pitches. She gets you to chase, or hook pitches foul. So I think it's just really understanding, whatever our game plan, the game plan that we have against her, the game plan that we have against anybody else, is trusting that that's the right game plan and going after it.
I know we talked a lot about the physical growth from your team from last year to this year. But it seems like the more we talk to the players, they tell us about the books that they've read that weren't probably mandatory by you, but choices of their own. To do that on top of all the schoolwork that they have to do, the hard off-season training, just what does it say about this team and how much they have decided themselves that they wanted to grow mentally to prepare for the season?
That you're talking to a mature group of athletes is what I would say. That's where I go back to the elder, experienced athletes that see what they have but are wanting maybe a little bit more. I think in college, physically, everybody has it. But to me, the mental game is what separates. And so I think everybody on our team understands how important the mental game is. And so, there's things that we do as a team, but I think it drives it even more when they, as individuals, take it upon themselves to do things, on the mental side.
How gratifying is it as a coach when they go out there? I mean, obviously you guys are still coaching, but when they're executing the game plan or executing that philosophy, taking the extra bases every opportunity. They did that this past weekend. Every chance that there was a throw someplace else, they would grab that extra base or pushing pressure by taking those extra leads. How gratifying is it to kind of see that all that work that you put into it come to fruition with a mature team like this?
I think it's gratifying for all of us. This team works really, really hard. We have tough practices. I don't think we ever have a practice where we just kind of go through it to just be loose and ready to go for the next day. There's always reason and purpose behind what we do. And so when you do it in practice and then it shows up in the game and they execute it, it's something we all get excited about. Not because we did it. I think we all are confident that we can do it. It's just because of the hard work that went behind it. I think that's what's exciting about it. I think the sport, our game, it's really, really fast. So them taking extra bases, to me, that shows that their mentality and how quickly they can think ahead in the middle of the game, as the game is going. The game moves at a very fast pace. So they're always looking for that extra base, or they're looking for what's next.
Is Hannah going to be able to give it a go this week?
Yeah, excited to get her back.
Stevie was talking about growing into comfortability with not just her own self, her own presence out there, and also learning that she can shake you off or tear her off, for that matter. How much of that do you see is, even if she hasn't done it yet this season, that she has to grow into that, where maybe in club ball it wasn't something she was permitted to do as much, that's part of the development and maturation process of a young pitcher, is having that freedom?
No, the freedom is there. I think it's the first thing that we talk about when they come in, is that, to me, it doesn't make sense whether a pitch is coming from me or coming from our catcher, and a pitcher goes, and then they throw it. Like, I don't know why we would expect that anything good would come out of that. So if you as a pitcher have that's not what I want, you need to shake. When you're young and you're learning, you're maybe not quite as sure about that. But I think as you get more experienced, she's still very young, but she's experienced. Then you start to, you don't worry about, well, what if it's wrong? You don't worry about that. You just know what you want. You get caught up in what you want, and that's what you want to go get.
How much of that learning was learning because they ended up over the fence last season? How much of when those happened, that was because if she was more comfortable at the time and shaking off, that those could have been avoided at the time?
Hey, who knows? That's out of our control. I could call the greatest pitch in the world and it goes over the fence, and I could call the worst pitch in the world and it doesn't. I don't think it really has to do with the outcome. I think it has to do more with them as individuals really being decisive on the mound and knowing what they want. They're going to get a pitch that they want, and they're going to throw it, and it's going to be the perfect pitch in the world, and it's still going to get hit out. But to me, that pitch doesn't stay with them for the rest of the game. They're able to let that go and move on to the next, because she believes, she trusts in it. You tip your cap to that hitter. But if you're throwing a pitch because you're indecisive, then I think that's where, problems are created. So I think Stevie's really decisive with what she wants right now. I think they're all really decisive about what they want. And I like that. I really like the staff.
How do you feel that they're all settling in? Obviously there's still a lot of season to go, but kind of hitting those different roles, if you will, who's going to eat the innings if they're not starting and whatnot. How do you feel like they're kind of settling into potential roles throughout the season?
I like how they're settling in. I think they're settling in quicker than maybe we had before. I think you could see we have a staff, and I like that a lot. I think you have to have a staff. So whether it's one, getting the majority of the outs in the game, another getting lesser outs. It's not majority or less. It's not about the outs. It's about like what you are called upon to do. And I think they really believe in what they are called upon to do this year and know how they complement each other as a group.
You've gone to the Mary Nutter more than a few times. Is there an experience that you think of when you think of this tournament?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You've been to this tournament more than a few times. Is there an experience that you think of about years past of times you've been at this tournament that sort of stick out to you?
I just think with this tournament, it's, it's one of the biggest preseason tournaments, non-conference tournaments that's out there. And so I think it's important for our athletes to really get caught up in us and not get caught up in the big crowds and all the to-do and ESPN and Flow Softball and everything that goes along with it, to really get caught up in us and what we're set out to do. That's what I think is the most important thing that they can do. And then it's just about playing good, clean softball and having an opportunity to be clutch and be clutch. And there's going to be times where we may not necessarily get what we want, to let it go, to make the adjustment and know that we're going to get it later. So I think it's being mature, and it's being very competitive, and really getting caught up in us is what's going to allow us to be successful this weekend.
As a macro overview of this season, it seems like the offenses are much more potent across the nation. Is that, in your opinion, just something kind of ebbs and flows of the game, or is there something that you would attribute that to, or is it just kind of a one-off oddity?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly what. I mean, our game, if you look at how our game has changed, our ball was white, now it's yellow. We pitched at 40, now we pitch at 43. You look at the technology that the hitters swing now, it's better than ever. You look at the information that offenses are getting on pitchers, it's, they know every single little thing. So I feel like our game has grown more, like you've seen it become more offensive, where in the past you used to have 1-0 ball games with double-digit strikeouts. I think so. You've seen it change a little bit offensively. So, and that's why I just think, again, that the importance of a staff.